I've got Dr. Veronica Testa, and I got Sarah Rizvi. Sarah's our registered psychotherapist, and today is Veronica's first day here at Try Health. And I'm like, I desperately want to do a podcast with you guys. And I know Sarah's been really bugging me for months now. To be
Dying for it.
Yeah. I've never seen one person under so much duress to just sit on a chair. And it's like, I'm like, she said she's going to resign. I'm like, okay, well, at least we got a good podcast out of you before you leave.
There you go.
And I thought that it would be good to combine you two because we all like helping people with their mental health. And it's become much more of a talking point, and there's a lot more that needs to go into it to understand and support people more. But I think that looking at just even general mental health as a sphere of lifestyle and activity and something that we can support and promote may just help the general public and most people minimize incidences of depression, anxiety, low affect, and to take some aspect of mental health as something that could be toned, strengthened, supported. So I kind of want to open up the conversation to be like, can mental health be something that we work on daily?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think the first thing is recognizing that something that is happening to our body could be a part of our mental health, right? And I was talking to Veronica earlier and saying our mind and our body are so connected that it is important to focus on those things daily. And if we look at some of the things that we do for ourselves in terms of the things we do for other organs, our brain is an organ too, right? It's a complex organ. It basically runs our entire body. So if we're looking at it in that sense, then there are things that we need to work on.
Yeah, it's, if your mentality isn't, right, we talk about in naturopathic medicine, mind, body, spirit. If one of those are not, balanced, then you're going to throw the whole system out of whack too. So unless we're able to prepare ourselves on a mental plane, emotional plane, that will translate into the physical body. There is a top-down regulation happening going on, right? So we need to make sure that we are addressing that daily, because if that's not adequate, then we're going to have other domino effects and consequences because of it.
So I'll wake up in the morning. What's the first thing I should do?
Probably not look at your phone.
Yeah, what's the first thing I do? Because my alarm's going off.
It's the first thing that most of us are doing.
But what are you looking at?
I think some of us are looking at social media. Yeah, definitely.
Well, what do you look at on social media?
Instagram.
But what are you looking for?
Nothing, and that's the problem. It's mindless.
Oh, okay.
We aren't really looking for anything. It's what's coming at us.
Like a pacifier.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's a dopamine fix. That's the first thing in the morning. People are tired, they're not sleeping well, they're overstimulated, and the first thing they want in the morning is to just get that hit of energy. And the easiest way to get that is straight through social media or on your phone.
Okay, so I'm not allowed to use my phone in the morning.
I mean, you can. I think you can use your phone with a purpose. And a lot of times what we are doing right now is, whether it's Instagram or any other social media, we're kind of letting it throw things at us versus looking for things. We're not researching things that are of interest to us. Mm-hmm. We can go into this further and say, well, then our interests are starting to come to us based on what we've been looking at. But at the same time, what's happening is that we are bombarded with so much information, and a lot of it is unfiltered nonsense.
So in what we've said so far, it sounds like a lot of us are looking for some type of enjoyment. Yeah. Like, how is that different than in the past? How is that different than 20 years ago, before people just looked at their phones all day? Why? What's the difference? What did we do to make ourselves happy back then? Maybe, Veronica, you don't know. I don't know, Sarah. I don't know how old you are. I mean, I remember dial-up, so it wasn't that convenient.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know. People watch TV more. People.
We socialized a lot more personally, in person, socializing, making plans. Future planning is so important for our mental health.
You skipped ahead.
Sorry.
No, I love it. Go.
Yeah, future planning. When we plan things and have something to look forward to, that is something that helps with our mental health. It gives us a purpose.
That's so, like, it's almost like you, if this was a game show, you would have gotten one of the, like, the $1,000 prize for saying something.
I win.
You know how many people I tell, like, do you have anything you look forward to? And they're like, I don't know. Like, I suppose. And it's like, okay, what are you looking forward to this week? And for you guys, it was like this podcast.
Dying for it.
I don't know what's next. But like most people don't have like, they don't have the concept of plans and things to look forward to. Mm-hmm. Like when I was a kid, we looked forward to the holidays or my birthday or the last day of school.
Yeah.
And those are things like checkpoints.
Yeah.
But nowadays, like, I mean, especially in adulthood where it's like, you just work. And that's like, and until recently, a lot of people couldn't go away. But now it's like, okay, someone's got a vacation. Go away in the summer, come back, school starts up if you have kids, or you're in school or work. What's next? And then on a monthly basis, there isn't many things that people are like, I got this to look forward to. I mean, you almost sound like you're somewhat juvenile when you're like, I got this. I'm going to go to my friend's house. But like, why isn't that kind of like valued? I mean, I think part of our phone usage is that it does give us that temporary dopamine, kind of like, I'm satisfied right now. I don't feel like going out because I'm going to just stay home and just play on my phone. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the past, people like, I don't have this. I don't have, like, I look forward to going out, seeing people I like, being in good company, getting this massive, like I remember it, mm-hmm. but now, like, no one does it.
Right.
No one needs it. At least they don't think they need it.
I think there's also a lot of expectations on what it looks like when you plan something and you go out versus what it used to be like before.
Like when people come over, you have to have everything nice.
Sure. Or even if you are going out, where are you going? What are you wearing? What's happening? Right. So that pressure, it's a lot easier to just sit at home and scroll.
Well, I'm only friends with slobs, so I don't care.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know what cool people do.
I don't either. But
yeah, no. It's become like a thing, like another thing off your checklist. Pressure. I have this shower, I have this dinner to attend. Oh, and then even the vacation, it should be relaxing, but I got to pack for my husband, I got to pack for my kids.
Well, that's what women say. They that because they don't want to be embarrassed by their husbands showing up with like 2 different shades of blue.
Or just 2 pairs of underwear,
sure.
You know, like that's it when on vacation. That's all they bring with them.
That's a great example.
That brings us back to expectation, though, right? Expectations, what we have, what we not. It's not just what we're expecting of other people, but what we expect of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And where is that coming from?
Where is it coming from?
I think a lot of it is back to the social media. It's coming from there. It's not real life, but it's what we think is real life on there. It's the way that people are portraying themselves, portraying their trips, portraying certain things.
Yeah. But who buys it? Who falls for it?
We all are.
Everyone.
Why? Why are we just so inherently unsatisfied with ourselves?
I would say that that's probably been the trend more so than anything else. People have become a lot less satisfied with their lives despite it constantly being overworked and overfilled and overscheduled.
So would you say social media has like numbed ourselves to what satisfies us inherently?
Yeah, definitely. It's overstimulation. You lose that sensitivity. Mm-hmm. It's not the same thing anymore. That dopamine fix, like that threshold, has now gotten higher and higher to get that satisfaction that you were talking about. It's not that easy anymore inherently to get that baseline happening.
Yeah, I tell my kids, I'm like, when I was a kid, if my favorite movie showed up on TV, I was lucky if I was just in front of the TV when it came on. And if I started halfway through, I'm only watching the last half, and there's commercials. Right. Now it's like, I want to watch this. And they're talking to the remote, and it plays instantly, and then they'll watch it right after it's finished. Mm-hmm. It's just different because our access to things has become too easy.
Right.
Yes.
So now,
but it's not. It's some people have more access to things than others, and I have a lot of clients who come in and they're comparing their lives to other people.
Okay, tell me, like, what's an example of something that, because on a very broad stroke in Canada, most people have access to more than what they need. Mm-hmm. Most. Mm-hmm. Well, what would you say? Like, is it like a legitimate lacking, or is it something that, now see, as I say, legitimate in this context, we're all lacking? Okay, you go ahead. Did I lose you?
A little bit. Well, I think maybe let's go back to what I was
saying. Yeah, please.
Yeah, go back to where you were.
What I was saying was, it's comparing based on what people are posting. Comparing.
Oh, okay.
Right? Comparing based on what the reality might not be, but I'm not going to post pictures of things that aren't satisfying me or things that aren't making,
so if you're having a bad hair day, you're not going to put it on your stories?
Probably not. No.
But wouldn't that be you being genuine?
But who's really being genuine on social media? That's the point.
I always have bad hair days in all my posts.
I think it opens you up to criticism with that. And
has anyone ever criticized a post?
I'm sure they have.
I'm sure it's like there's trolls online and stuff like that.
I got trolled last week on Twitter.
Oh.
I blocked them.
Sorry, that's me.
Yeah.
No, he was like attacking me, like saying stuff about like naturopaths or quacks. Oh. And then he sent me another video of a duck quacking.
That's harassment.
It's also was funny.
At least
I was mad, and I'm like, good one.
You just gave this person a shout out.
Yeah.
I didn't say who he was. I'm pretty sure it's a dude. That's such a guy thing to do. Guys should be banned from social media. What do you think about that? If men were on social media, how would social media change? Probably wouldn't. Most women on Instagram, 70% or more, are female users.
I don't know if it would change.
I get that data.
Yeah.
I don't know. Half the stuff probably wouldn't be important that's posted on there.
How so?
It wouldn't be important to the women who are posting. Or it depends on who they're trying to attract.
Would you say that most women use social media to attract other women? Or to get attention from other women?
No.
The other way?
Maybe from men, maybe like just to show like their status, their like saying, oh, like you were saying, the societal expectation, look at what I have, like a little bit more materialistic. Maybe there could be some inherent competition. And so, or like, I'm better than you. There's some superiority.
So that would be like gaining, having clout over other females.
Exactly. Maybe having clout over other females potentially, or just other people.
So it's petty.
Oh yeah. It's probably not rooted in the most like you said, genuine, aligned way. It's definitely rooted from like a lack of self-esteem, a lack of self-confidence, massive insecurity.
Yeah, I agree. Where do we go from there though? So, okay, so we kind of painted social media as this villain, but let's say that you can curb it or you don't use it that much. So you get up, what do you do next?
I think a really great thing if we are going to pick up our phone is to do something like a gratitude journal or just adding like a couple of prompts, or in my notes app, or some people, they try to schedule out their day and like a very, saying, okay, you know what? I'm really grateful for this. I'm grateful for my cup of coffee, my tea, whatever. And then you can just kind of mentally prepare yourself a little bit too. There's a bit of an organization. I think that's for people that I have recommended, like, let's just start off your routine, because some people are getting up and they're just in the thick of the chaos.
Yeah.
Like setting that time for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes, just to get your head on straight a little bit and saying, okay, I can tackle this day, get that affirmation in there a little bit.
So in that same realm, a morning meditation, it doesn't have to be something that's like really long. It can even be like 5 minutes. Just, feeling grounded, feeling... It's that mindfulness. That's, I think, what a lot of us are missing, is that we're so robotic in our routine that we don't get to even enjoy the simplest things. Sure.
Okay. So from there, I'm hearing intention and routine.
Yes.
As opposed to being on an automatic and kind of just numb to each experience. And you, as opposed to like, I'm going to have my coffee now and enjoy it. It's, I'm going to scarf it down scalding hot because I'm in a hurry and I'm late.
Exactly.
Okay, I like this. Routine is important. I think a lot of people, they underestimate the time that's available to them. They expect that things just get done, and at the end of the day, they're like, oh, nothing's gotten done. I haven't accomplished anything. And I think when I talk to people, I'm like, you have to give yourself credit when you do something. Like, even if you just did one thing today, let's say you did grocery shopping. That's very important. You should value that. You should reward yourself in like a subconscious kind of way. I'm like, I did that. Most people, they're like, there's so many things that need to get to be done. It's so unrewarding because it's like a chore. So like there's a whole misperception of like reality in life. It's like I have to do all these things. None of them give me any enjoyment. They're all a hassle. How do you reframe your life?
So a lot of it has to do with the narrative in our head. It's the way that we're, instead of saying, hey, I accomplished this, we're looking at, hey, here are all the things I didn't accomplish today, right? So just like you're saying, the grocery shopping could be looked at as a task that, okay, I completed this, check, I feel good about it, versus here are all the things that I didn't get to get done today.
Yeah, a lot of people who are list people, they have a list that is like 30 pages long, and it's an insurmountable thing. It's like, I'll never get all of this done.
They're setting themselves up for failure, though. It's unrealistic, and that's what you have to talk about with patients. Like that, you're almost creating a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. If you put 30 things on a list and expect to get it done in, I don't know, the day or X amount of hours, you're almost like it again, that you have to reframe it saying, okay, what is actually realistic to get done? And then another point that I was thinking about is I get the opportunity to do these things. Like, and then when you come to it from a place of gratitude, that's also very helpful as well, as opposed to saying, oh my God, it's just another thing I have to get done. It's just another thing. You know what? I have the opportunity today to get this done or to do this. And that's great.
Yeah. I like it. But so I think you have to script it and frame it in a way that a person can like actually value that, because someone could be very cynical, be like, yeah, great. I get to shovel the snow. Great. It's like, I mean, without being like, well, you're lucky you have 2 arms and 2 legs, you can move. It's like, how do you actually is it that our expectations or our degree of comparison is so out of whack and unrealistic that we're like, unless I'm on a yacht somewhere in the Mediterranean, I'm failing at life.
I think there is a massive disillusionment with social media, and a lot of it people can't delineate. They can't tell what's fake, what's photoshopped, what's altered in some way. So yeah, I really do think that that's a big piece of the puzzle there.
Hey, have you ever bumped into someone that posts things and then you see through them and you realize, yeah,
you can tell. Sometimes you see them in person, you're like, wow, you can tell that this was face tuned or something going on. They really are living behind a screen. They're just trying to create an image of, again, what we expect people to have. Everything has to be so aesthetically pleasing. Even your morning routine, it has to be a cute water bottle. It has to be in these certain containers, and it's got to look a certain way. Everything's become so aesthetic and material, which is kind of unfortunate because not everyone can necessarily do that. And then that's another thing that adds on to it as well, is like, oh, I didn't have it in the nice pretty water bottle. I can't post this on social media.
Or even just, not, even if we look at it from a social perspective, it's, whose relationship is the best, who's, how lovey-dovey are you on Instagram? What does this mean? That type of thing. And then you realize that they actually really hate each other.
Yeah. Isn't that like an old adage? It's like the couple that's always hugging and holding hands, and they probably just despise each other and just kind of they're faking it to make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not that there aren't people that are totally in love.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of times it is that it's people who are posting to, I don't know, prove something perhaps. And that puts a lot of pressure on people.
It's validation, because they'll probably get, if you're posting an image, you're hoping for comments.
Yep, comments
or likes.
And likes. Yeah.
And if you don't get any, then you don't have any friends and you're ugly.
It's a negative feedback. It's terrible. You're not getting that positive feedback. You're just reaffirming all your insecurities. Mm-hmm. They don't like me. I am ugly. I am this. I am that.
Or I don't matter, right? I don't matter enough for people to pay attention to what I'm posting.
Mm-hmm.
And when they post, I find a lot of people post what they think people will want to like. like an image of themselves that is more pleasing to the outside world. Like I can just do a post, but if I do a post and I have like a popular slogan on my shirt, then people are gonna be like, oh yeah, I like where you're coming from. So it's kind of like I'm pandering to who's out there. So in other words, we're empty. Why? Like, how do we fill ourselves on our own merits, our own esteem? Is that like too broad of a question?
No.
How do you build yourself up?
I think a lot of it has to do with looking at ourselves, comparing ourselves to where we were and where, you know, where we want to go.
Our own journey.
What our goals are. Yeah. Versus what this other person's goals are and how am I trying to align this goal with this other person's goal? It's going to be unattainable. There's no way, because first of all, we don't know what the reality of this other person's life is. And second of all, there's always going to be someone who has more than you, who's doing more than you. There's also going to be someone who's doing less than you. So if you're constantly comparing, it's going to get stressful. It's going to get to that point where the things that you're expecting of yourself are actually getting you to that point where you're feeling anxious and stressed out and depressed.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of childish how people act.
It's become the norm.
Yeah. I think people just, it sounds cynical because we were talking about mental health and I'm like, half of these people are immature and they're acting childish. I mean, but how much of depression or anxiety is about not having what you want?
Well, with anxiety, there's a fear of something.
Not having something.
Perhaps.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Not having something or having something that you don't want. Right? A fear of something. It can be an irrational fear. It can be a fear, like there's usually something there that you're worried about, that you're stressed about.
Sure.
So looking at that, right? And a lot of times when people are feeling stressed out, when they're not feeling well, I don't even think that they're at a point where they're like, I think this is anxiety. Because that mindfulness, right? Not being able to recognize within yourself that there's something happening here and just continuing on and on until you get to this dark place that's hard to get out of, right?
Yeah, maybe the physical symptoms have kind of run away with themselves, spurred by just this negative self-thought and it's consumed them and they have it's almost like being in a hole. Like, how do you get out?
Right. And then when the physical stuff starts to come out, then they're looking at, they're getting blood work done. They're doing all these things. And it's like the results are fine or,
normal. That's my favorite.
Yeah. Normal.
Well, then let's say I mean, because I've had a lot of people who had chronic anxiety end up with like blood pressure and or heart rate issues. And so they are tachycardia and they get panic attacks and they get dizzy spells and they now they have physical conditions.
Right. Yeah.
And that kind of just evolved over time without it, that recognition. It's like this person has acute anxiety that just become chronic, which has become pathological. What do you think that we should do? Like, how do you individually recognize it? How, as practitioners, do you recognize and be like, hey, do you think you just have like a lot of anxiety? And then once you hit them with that, where do you take them afterwards?
I think it depends. So I always think of anxiety as an umbrella. It's an umbrella term. It is a diagnosis, generalized anxiety disorder, other types of phobias and things of that nature. But really, anxiety is an umbrella, and it could mean a lot of different root causes, right? So I generally try to tease apart what that physical symptom that they're coming in with. So like you said, the high blood pressure. And then I explain to them that your anxiety, your stress, your overload, that's actually like your hypertension is the physical manifestation of that. But they need to you got to go along the thread a little bit there. So like clinically, I find that coming with the physical symptoms, you're able to wean them back and say, you know what, this is actually an adaptive response. Your hyperthyroidism is because you feel, or your perception is you don't have enough energy to get through the rest of your day, to get through that productive list or whatever, to be productive. So you create excess thyroid hormone. Like your body is responding to your perception at the end of the day. And then when they are able to acknowledge and recognize that, like you talked about the acknowledgement piece, then they kind of go, oh my God, you know what? Yeah, it's not just my heart palpitations or my high blood pressure. It's actually this anxiety root cause that's going on at the end.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that your anxiety is telling you something.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling you something. And then when those physical, symptoms start to show up, it's okay, maybe that's when we react, right? Sure. That's when we're reacting. That's when we're going to get help versus, okay, I'm not okay. Something's not right. Let me start to look into what is this? What is the stress? Where is it coming from?
Sure. Like we are supposed to have a stress response and that's a normal function. And when I tell patients, it's like you want to have stress hormones. Your body needs and thrives under some periods of stress, but sometimes stress is, and it's extended and it's a long period of time and our resources become used up. Other times people kind of do it to themselves. It may not be situational, it may just be their character. It's like, I overanalyze things. I have a busy brain. I can't shut my brain down. I can't stop thinking. And then they start feeling that they become more and more depleted and they like run out of like steam and they hit a wall and they just feel like they're in burnout. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that we can look for in terms of whether it's symptoms or behaviors that act like a checkpoint or a checklist to be like, okay, am I burnt out? Am I overdoing it? Do I have anxiety because of my just like overthinking? Am I overworked? What are some things that you can analyze for yourself so that you know that you're not going to burn out or crash?
I think in terms of thinking and overthinking, it's okay to, like, we're all constantly thinking, but it's what are we saying to ourselves? What's the narrative? Mm-hmm. How do we speak to ourselves? Are we kind? Do the things that we say to ourselves, would we say those to a friend or a loved one or our child? Most of the time, probably not. But we don't speak to ourselves kindly. And when we focus on that and we focus on all the mean things, if there was someone who was, let's say you had someone that was hanging out with you and constantly nagging at you and mm-hmm. saying those things to you, that's basically what we're doing to ourselves a lot of the time.
Sure.
So it's trying to shift that thinking a little bit. What
is accomplished by that? Why do you think like our internal monologue does that at times?
The negative thinking?
Yeah.
Well, some of it is it's like a survival skill, right?
How so? Tell me.
Well, if you're in some kind of danger, you don't want to just be like, everything's great, I'm fine, all good. You're awesome for being in the woods with a bear, right? You want to be like, I need to get the hell out of here. Mm-hmm. So that's good. But when we start to focus on everything in that negative space where we're just constantly, bombarding ourselves with all the things that we haven't achieved today, all the things that we should be doing, could even as simple as, oh, I'm such an idiot for taking that wrong turn, right? When mm-hmm. you're driving. Things like that, it starts to kind of add up.
So, but I think that's what I want to look at is like, where does that come from? Like, why? Like, if I make a wrong turn, I'm I'm just going to make 3 more turns. 3 more turns? 2 more turns? I don't know. It depends on which way we went.
Or U-turn.
Yeah. Oh, I hate U-turns. Those are the worst.
Yeah.
But why? Where does that come from?
Like, how does it originate? Where's it come? Okay, so when we're born, what do we have in our brains?
Not much.
Not much. Right?
We just want the security.
We want the security. Perhaps there was, something. We heard mom and dad's voice and while we were in utero, whatever, fine. But we really don't have much. But what's happening then as we get older, as we're experiencing things in life, it's like our brain is loading those things on like a computer.
So we want validation as a child. Mm-hmm. Like we want someone to say, oh, you did good, or that looks nice, or I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And at some point, maybe we didn't get that, or we were hoping for it and it wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And then, or there was like a negative comment or criticism.
Sure. Why didn't you get the grades? Why? Why
mm-hmm.
not this? Why not better? Why, and we're loading that
sure.
onto our brains. Constantly loading it on.
And I guess like part of it is the comparison component. It's like, well, so-and-so got it.
Sure. Your sister did, your brother did, your cousins did. Why aren't you the top of your class?
Why weren't you, Sarah?
I don't know.
I feel like a lot of Sarah's coming out in this conversation.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
There's even like growing up with potentially emotionally immature parents, and then you're constantly being aware of their needs. You become that people pleaser later on in life because mm-hmm. you had to emotionally attune to what was the chaotic environment. They weren't able to emotionally regulate themselves. You took on that stressor, as she talked about. Now you become an anxious person because you're constantly feeling out other people's emotions. You get the empath trait, which is a great survival skill, because if I know what you're feeling, I can now try to predict my response and the outcome to make it, to lessen whatever the negative outcome could be from that.
Sure.
So there's a lot of like inherent trauma or family dynamics that play into where we get this anxiety.
So, I mean, I think for a lot of us, we might be first generation Canadian, where our parents didn't grow up here, or they moved here later on, or they had a strong home country influence, where here, like maybe they didn't have the education we did. Maybe we, quote unquote, know more about mental health, or how not to talk to kids, or how not to let them watch stuff that's not appropriate, or talk about, or not fight in front of them. So we kind of grew up with like elements of like old school, old country education, but in a new world context, where it's like we're kind of a generation of like, I've seen both, and there's problems with both. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of mess with our psyches? Because then when the next generation, our progeny come, they're going to be like, they won't have a clue of what like old country problems were, because they've been so first world isolated. But then with that comes with so much more like overanalyzing maybe.
But you'd be surprised how even first generation, the things that we're picking up, the things that we're still, right? Because the way that we were raised by, let's say, immigrant parents, that was our blueprint.
Sure.
So whether or not we realized it or not, some of it is subconsciously, it's there.
Is that bad?
It's not bad, but it depends on what it is, right? Is it okay to be...
Is the bad part bad?
Yeah, the bad parts are bad, right? There are things, you know, family values, you know, those types of things, but there's other things.
So I want to jump on that.
Yeah.
Family values. Mm-hmm. If we live in a world that's a little bit more cynical and self-centered, how does that impact family values?
I think it almost... It does disintegrate it a little bit, because we're not always going back to those traditional things that we used to do, because there's so much stereotyping. There's a lot of stigma around certain things. So I think it does actually affect it negatively in some aspects.
Sure. So maybe we were becoming self-centered, and maybe that lends towards overanalyzing ourselves. Because maybe growing up with family, you mentioned being an empath and like anticipating, it was like, oh, dad's in a bad mood, everyone be quiet, that sort of thing. Yeah. Versus nowadays, it's like, I'm in a bad mood. No one call me today or text me or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
The pendulum has swung on the opposite direction, right? Like you were saying, you went from one end of the spectrum of like, I got to be quiet because, like you said, dad's in a bad mood or whatever. And now we're just feeling like we can not censor anything. Oh yeah, I'm upset. Please, like I'm triggered. I'm this, I'm that. And now it's maybe to one other. So eventually I think it will find a middle point, but it always tends to kind of hit one end before it.
But really isn't it okay to say I'm in a bad mood? No one call me or text me. That's boundaries. Are we not allowed to have that?
No, I think we should have it. But what happens when our boundaries limit us to like, we can't function around other people?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's different.
Yeah, that's
different. So that, like, I mean, what you highlighted is the number one automatic response. It's like, well, before I would be changing, my parents just walked into my room. I'm like, hey, it's like my house, my rules. Now it's like, I'm driving through your neighborhood. Do I have your permission in case you see my car on your Ring camera?
Like, I'm not stalking you.
I'm just going to the mailbox. So like now it like we poke fun, but really it's just to compare and contrast. It's like, what is a normal boundary? Like, how do you define it? How do you know how to function around other people? Because it's like, I don't know if I say, hey, how are you guys? I'm like, maybe that triggered you. Maybe I should be like, how are you persons? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's a whole other podcast.
It is.
I was going to say, that's a whole other realm going on.
So if we can just back up then, let's just say like, how do you know not to allow yourself to be overwhelmed with your emotions and your thoughts? How do you control that? How do you limit that?
I think there's a lot of self-reflection that needs to take place.
But what do you reflect against? It's like someone will be like, you know what, it really bothered me that someone made that comment today.
Yeah. So we can be like, is this comment really about me, or is this comment about this person? Is it about what they feel, perhaps about themselves? Are they projecting? Or is this really about me?
The fact that the person was triggered by something someone else said, and we're describing a society that we're so externally focused. It's going to be very difficult for that person to diffuse the comments of outside world, because it's not going to stop. And even if that one person stopped, there's going to be another 10 people right after them that's going to say the same thing or have the same feeling. So it's like, is the solution just to become more and more reclusive and avoid exterior world?
No. I think the solution is, again, to look within ourselves and to say, how does this comment serve me or not serve me? And it's not easy. There's no way that we could just be like, oh, this person said something, no problem, I'm fine, right? Brush it off. Not happening.
If someone had a really strong center of focus, like internally, like, listen, I know who I am, I'm happy with myself, is it safe to say that you're probably not super sensitive to comments other people make?
They could be very securely attached. The only thing you can, in a world full of chaos, the only thing you can control is your own reaction. So in terms of learning or trying to cope, you have to be able to find a way to emotionally regulate yourself more so than anything else, because you're not going to be able to necessarily control the external environment, all the chaos that's around.
Like the quack thing, right?
Yeah.
That happened. Your boundary was, I'm going to block this person. I'm going to laugh it off.
Yeah.
But if there were things that actually made you feel insecure, let's say, for example, if you weren't confident in your career, if you didn't feel like this was something that was making a difference, if you weren't happy with where you were in life, you might take that very personally.
Right. So having a strong sense of self is sort of like one layer of protection, and recognizing like you're going to hear people make comments and whatever, to them that was a joke or was nothing, and to other people it's like career ending. What else?
I think something that we were talking about before was about access.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like access to, support, mental health support. And just, what encourages or discourages people from wanting to reach out for that help.
Do you find people are the general consensus, like most people are like, yeah, I would talk to somebody?
It's like, yeah, I would talk to somebody, but I don't have insurance coverage. I would talk to somebody, but, right? And it's very easy to put this on the back burner because it's something that's so personal to us, right? There isn't somebody that's, sometimes there are people who are like, hey, did you go see someone? Did you talk to someone? But other times it's more about, this is the work that I'm doing on myself, and this is something that can wait. I am a firm believer in, therapy being covered by OHIP. I don't know if or when that will ever happen, but I think it should. Why is it okay? Why is it covered when you go to see a doctor for your heart? It's not okay to go see someone for your brain.
It's not okay.
It's not funded, provided for.
So, I mean, we have a medical system right now where we live that are you dying today?
Yeah.
So the idea with mental health is you're having anxiety. What's the odds of you dying today from anxiety? This is a very cynical way of looking at it. We don't have a healthcare system that's geared towards promoting health. It's to prevent death. So there's a little nuance in this conversation, though, is assuming a person has some income. Should they not invest in mental health? Should they not say, like, I see the value in speaking to a therapist and I will pay someone? as opposed to, if it's free, I'll do it.
There's absolutely value in that. And I think that because it's something that is geared towards medical, I think people feel like it should be covered. I think that's what I'm saying. But yeah, it's true. We should be investing in our mental health, just like we would invest in, I don't know, a wheelchair if we needed it.
And
Good
then,
example.
Yeah, you and I, yeah.
Is it?
No, I don't know. I think I know what you meant.
You and I had even talked about it though before, this idea of we'll spend $100 on a dinner going out somewhere.
There it is.
Right? But we won't spend the $100 or whatever the consult fee is for our mental health. It's so easy to get all the other materialistic things to comfort yourself, but you don't see that reward necessarily right away from doing the mental
Isn't
health.
it childish?
I don't know if it's childish. I think it's just self-soothing.
I'd rather have a new phone and my data
Yeah.
plan than I'm going to talk to someone that's going to help me.
It's scary. It's scary to talk to someone because you have to be vulnerable. But if-
To talk to a therapist?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very vulnerable.
It's
No, it's vulnerable, but
Yeah.
is it scary? I mean, it doesn't have to be
I
scary.
mean, no, but I mean, the minute you start to open up to essentially a stranger, you are going to feel uncomfortable.
You know how many people
uncomfortable.
like talking about their problems? A lot of people. Yes. More than you would think.
I think when you're coming into a therapy session, most of the time you're coming with what's called like your presenting problem. There's something there.
Yeah. So okay. So I think when you get close to like the bullseye, there's going to be resistance and be like, I don't know if I'm ready to talk about this.
Yeah, exactly. It's different when you talk like casually with like your friends about, oh yeah, this person, that person, I feel this, I feel that. But when you really like dig deep, there's that fear of, now I'm really like unloading all this stuff, all the repressed stuff that I put back down there, it's coming up. So I think there is a fear in seeing a therapist as opposed to, well, I'll buy a new phone, it'll make me feel really good in the moment. And now I've self-soothed myself.
And a lot of times the stuff that's coming up is like your upbringing, your childhood. Those are things that if they've been troubled childhood, chances are that you've tried to push that away and you've pushed it back and pushed it back and pushed it back, and now it's starting to show up in different parts of your life.
So I mean, I'm showing some of my cards in my background, but how often does someone? Maybe you shouldn't answer this. I mean, okay. So my general thought is a lot of times when we complain about what our parents did, assuming it wasn't some type of criminal thing, that just our upbringing, when we go back to it as like a source of pain, that sometimes it's an excuse for why we feel the way we do, or why we act the way we do. Does that make sense? I'll be like, my dad never gave me credit for doing good things, so now I cut people off on the highway.
Don't do that.
No. And to blame your dad for that is wrong.
Yeah, but it doesn't always
Not always.
show up in conversations like that. Like with your, like in a session, it's not like my dad did this, so I'm like this. My dad did this, so I'm like this. It's more like through conversations, you're making connections, and the person's like, wow, I didn't even think of it that way. That's where that moment, and there isn't always that like aha moment, but there are those moments where it's like, that's true. I'm like this because of this. This happened. How can I change this now? Right?
So you're picking up that there's some kind of parallel with their current behavior and their feeling, and then something in their past that was like, do you see that this is kind of like how you felt back then is triggering you to behave this way now?
Almost always.
Yeah. And they more often than not, like as they're presenting that and you're hearing it, you're like reflecting it back to them and they get it.
They get it. Or they're resistant to it for a while. No, that can't be. No, I'm there's no, I hate my dad. I'm not like my dad. I don't know why we're bashing dads today, but
No, it's healing.
right? So it's one of those like resistant, you continue to talk about it, or you don't sometimes. Sometimes they don't want to continue to talk about it, not ready to accept it.
Yeah. All right. What else can we do for our mental health? What are some basic things?
Like self-care.
What's that?
I think it's become like this catch, phrase or whatever.
I like catchphrases as long as we actually make it real, like mind, body, spirit. I'm like, let's actually work on our mind. Let's actually know what mind, body, spirit even means.
So self-care is basically anything that you do for yourself. A lot of times I'll be like, what's your self-care? And these people feel this pressure to be like, I go to the gym. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that. It can. I
tell people it doesn't count.
What, the gym?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Even if someone's like, I enjoy vacuuming, that's not.
That's work.
Right. It's work. Self-care has to be something that's enjoyable, but it's like unique to you. It's something, it could be like grabbing a coffee and going for a drive and listening to your favorite music.
What would that be?
Oh, I don't know. Some gangster stuff. I don't know.
Wow, I knew it.
I don't know. What do you want me? Backstreet Boys.
That's boring. I think self-care, in the context that I see things, should be counter to what you do for work, or that is your main focus. As to like the idea of like, a lot of people want to be extremely driven in their career, and they like every moment has to be some kind of like uber efficient. Like, I just did another post and then this and this and it's like, how about a puzzle?
Yeah.
Well, I could do a puzzle that will enhance my. I'm like, no. How about a puzzle that's just for your brain to dumb down?
Yeah, or that's what I say about reading, right? Like, I do a lot of reading, work-related reading, but then I like to read for fun, which is like fluff, like just trashy novels, whatever it is, right? Like just whatever, right?
Yeah, finding your hobby. That's one that mostly nobody does nowadays. I'm guilty of it too at times because it's so easy to get caught up.
I have lots of hobbies.
Yeah, I wish I had, more, or like, I feel like, in the past, people, like as kids, you always had something, you always had extracurriculars and stuff. But nowadays, you don't even have those extracurriculars.
And something like that, like a hobby, is if you can find something that you are really passionate about, that'll help in like your retirement stage of life. Like when you've retired and you're like, what do I do now, right? That part of it, that if it's a hobby, especially something where you're socializing with other people, where you're connecting.
that's good, because you don't want like to retire and be like, I'm just sitting on the couch.
Twiddling your thumbs.
Exactly. It's
but like
the worst thing
right now, like I point at you because I'm like, sometimes I'll be like, well, what do you do for fun? I'll be like, nothing. What's your hobby? I don't have any. I'm like, what did you do when you were a kid?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, I played sports. I'm like, okay, well, join a league. I don't have the time.
You got to make the time.
Yeah, well, there's that one obstacle.
Yeah.
You can like literally just hit a ball against your garage door.
Yeah.
That's something. Find in the minimum way that you can do it. At least start that way. If it's an instrument, go to your parents' house and in the basement and get your old whatever and dust it off.
Sing in the shower, like you're gonna shower.
Good enough.
Why you don't?
the
Veronica likes singing. Everybody.
I do.
I can tell.
I'm an opera singer.
Yes,
so that's
I think
why.
I remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, now using that as an example of a hobby besides singing in the shower, where else could you sing?
So, like, you could join a choir. That was something I did before. Like, at the church, that was something I did as well. I was lucky enough that I had, like, a few other friends that also sang. So we did, like, little recitals and things like that. Like, people
can even get together with your friends and, like, do karaoke.
Yeah, jam sessions. People do that all the time. Oh, I play guitar. Oh, let's have a jam session.
Get your, like, grade 5 recorder out.
Whatever. Yeah, just something. Self-expression, self-creativity.
So how do you allow yourself to do it? Because I mean, I described people that are so self-driven and so consumed with what they see on social media, and it's like, well, this Instagram model has a 6-pack. I don't think she's playing the recorder and eating cheese with her friends. But
is she happy?
Yeah.
She looks smiling in the pictures, and she just got her teeth done.
But is she happy? Yeah. Is she?
But how? Okay, so the cynical response would be like, well, she looks happy, and like she's got those things, so at least she's got them.
Okay.
We're comparing ourselves again,
what's happiness then? It's like, well, did she just get dumped? Oh, she'll find a new boy. Whatever. But is she happy? Like that's the right answer, right question. Yeah. How do you know? Like, why does it even matter?
It doesn't, because why are we back to comparing ourselves to this?
Exactly.
Because that's what we do first thing in the morning.
But why aren't we like, this cheese is great, and what was the other thing?
The recorder, your
Plain
grade 5
with-
recorder.
yes,
Hot cross buns.
hot cross buns and cheese, right? Why? Maybe that's something that's the highlight of our week. Why can't it be? Why does it have to be the white teeth or whatever it is that's happening on, it's scaling it down to what matters to us. I think.
Do you think not enough ugly people use Instagram?
We don't know. What do people actually even look like anymore?
I was gonna say
Well, just the people who post, right?
Yeah.
They must be good looking. Because then they wouldn't post.
Define ugly.
Yeah.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Well, check the stats on Instagram. So, if beauty's in the eye of the beholder, why do we value what other people think so much?
It's a social hierarchy. That's evolutionary. You had to thrive in a tribe. You had to thrive on other people's, emotions and stuff like that.
Is this a sink or swim situation? Have we gone full circle where now we're like, maybe I should get like my teeth whitened?
I think so, because if you're not perceived a certain way as having a certain status, that's where you are along the ranking, the social ranking.
So, okay, now we just did a U-turn for real.
Yeah.
Now, what happens now? Like, we do have a increase in people who have zero affect. I don't care about how they look, or they look maybe contrary to what most people would consider attractive, whether it's their physical fitness, whether it's their how they carry themselves. Because people are like whatever, I don't care about anything. I am going to eat cheese. I eat cheese all day, and I'm just going to stay in my basement. Now we've kind of got like this division of like Instagram models and like sloths, gamers. I don't know. Mm-hmm. How did we deviate? Like, I mean, to me, I picture like Instagram model female, like that looks like a model, versus like the modern guy that like, unless like percentages wise, most of them are overweight and kind of unappealing and just have no motivation. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of like had this big fork in the road. And I always go back to like, in theory, you can say there's female role models, but is there male role models? What would be a male role model? Cheese eating video gamer. That's who seems to be popular on social media. Because otherwise, outside of like a guy who's on steroids, has six pack, or is just a fitness guy that just that's his life, and has a chiseled chin, right? But besides that, like, you're not going to see a lot of guys that are like.
But what about like athletes?
You want me to look up to a hockey player? Like so. I mean, a little kid might look up to their favorite hockey player on their favorite team, but like when you're like 20, it's hard to look up to like someone who's 20.
True. Mm-hmm.
For guys.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So maybe that's something that's been lost. Like, I think part of it is like we do need sometimes someone to look up to.
So maybe that's where we go back to like the family values thing.
Oh, interesting.
Why are we not connecting and looking up to?
Because we resent our father. I don't want to turn into him.
But maybe we look at what are the good qualities that my dad had? What are the qualities that I didn't like about my dad that maybe I don't want to. I want to use those as examples of what I don't want to be, what I don't want to bring into my life.
So we're filtering out the bad and looking at the good.
Right, but that's all about reflecting, right? If we aren't mindful, if we aren't reflecting, if we aren't looking at those things and analyzing them because we're too busy eating cheese and playing video games, then we're not doing that, right? We're not getting to the core of what the issues are. We're numbing ourselves with cheese and video games.
So in summary, what would a nice day look like? You wake up, don't go to your phone.
Yeah.
Kind of compose yourself, be mindful.
Journal, do your meditation.
No one's going to journal, come on.
Okay, in your notes, just look, I'm happy for the 7
that
hours.
That sounds so like, ugh, I'm happy that it's raining. For the flowers.
Yes. Read that. But what about places where they aren't getting rain?
Oh,
Drought.
wow, you sound like my grandmother.
Yes. She's probably happier than most of us.
Yeah, I hope she is. Okay. So not to sound too cynical, but I think I've hit balls into each corner of the field. And my idea is like, we fixate on people that we see on social media, but maybe it's good to have an idea what's out there. Maybe we should look up to certain people within a reasonable allotment. I'd be like, hey, you know what? I like that this guy is like, works hard. He gets up early. I like that. But I don't feel the need I have to get up at 4:30 and to do an hour of cardio. Maybe I don't do that. Maybe I just make sure I'm up by like 7. Mm-hmm. And every day I try to accomplish a few things and check things off my list and like work towards something, have goals, have reasonable goals. Mm-hmm. Maybe not goals based on what my neighbor has. Yeah. It's like, my cousin's got a Mustang. So guess what car I'm getting? Whatever is better than Mustang. Mm-hmm. That would be a jerk thing to do. But people do it all the time because they're miserable.
Constantly one-upping. But where's the end to that? There's no end.
There isn't. No. Because there's going to be someone with a Mustang plus 2.
Sure.
And then you never get to go out because then you have no friends.
Yeah. Community is so underrated. It's something that was in the past. I feel like, just taking it back from the beginning, like what was it 20 years ago that we had community. We were, our parents or the other grandparents, they lived in these villages and communities, and you had that social support, that social engagement, that network. Nowadays you have networking, social media, but you don't actually know like your neighbors or these other friends. And a lot of the times when you get together, you break down those disillusionment barriers of social media because they're going through similar things that you are. And when you feel supported, you're actually able to cultivate motivation. You can get that support from other people, right?
Should we call social media anti-social media?
Perhaps. I mean,
I just made that up.
Right, but there are...
It's pretty good.
I don't know if you made that up.
I just thought of it right now.
I don't know, but like if you go look online, it's probably already there. Search it. There are benefits to social media, right? Yeah. You can connect with people who live far away. Mm-hmm. You can, Yeah,
I follow you on Instagram.
I don't live far away. You can connect with, people that's hard, it might be difficult to talk to them every day.
What does anti-social media mean?
Get a little, window into their lives. But
list the people they dislike and do not want any contact with them. I think that's too literal.
But it's there.
It's just a block list.
Oh, yeah. But what I'm saying is there are benefits. There are things that, you can use social media for, but are we using them in that way?
No. Why? But why aren't we? Dopamine. We're miserable. We're catty. Especially you.
Yeah, me.
And you didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
I still don't want to do this.
We're overstimulated. There's too much going on. We're dysregulated. That it comes in all the time. Our serotonin, it's not just dopamine, but it's all of the above. Our executive dysfunction. We're just trying to survive at this point because we're not balanced. We're not grounded. I don't know if you see it in patients all the time, but almost always there's something. Mm-hmm. There's always some, disharmony going on. And
for sure.
Yeah. So
I say that people, they're not happy until they have what they want. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's okay that you don't have it yet, but you might be working towards something. Let's say someone's trying to lose 10 pounds, but they'll be like, I just hate myself until I lose it. I'm like, you probably won't ever lose it now.
Right.
Or people are like, I'd like to have a bigger house. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And it's like, but I'm miserable in my house right now. It's like, well, that's not how things work. Like, you have to be content with where you are right now. You can want more, but you can't be mad that you don't have it yet. That's childish.
Yeah. And then again, it goes back to the way that you're talking to yourself. I'm not good enough. This is not good enough. I don't have what I want immediately. And for that reason, there's something wrong with me, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not doing this right. This is my fault.
Yeah. And it is your fault. Because, not you, literally. You took great offense to me. I'm like, but people, they allow the outside world to dictate what they want, and they go along with it. They're like, I do want a bigger house. So-and-so has a bigger house, and it was so nice. And I feel like, Is the roof caving in? No, it's not. You just kind of like are like a kid in a toy store and you want everything and you can't have everything. You should have what you need. Mm-hmm. And people just don't know what they need anymore.
Right.
Because they want everything.
Mm-hmm. They're missing what they need and they compensate with all the things that they want.
And the minute you get what you want, there's going to be something else that you want.
Yeah.
So
will you ever be happy?
No, it's not a satisfying. No. Like sometimes the looking forward to having something is like, that's the best part because when you get it, you're like,
okay.
The anticipation.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's next? That's sad. Like that's like if adults do that, which most do.
They do. Yeah.
That's sad. Like think about it. It's like you just got something. You just like the thing that you were coveting and waiting for and saving for and complaining about, and you got it. What's next? Now it's like, why did you even get it? Where is it now? It's in the closet.
And did you even enjoy the journey of getting there?
Then why did you want it in the first place? Did you just want a big dopamine rush?
Generally.
Yeah. And then there's the crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. That's the problem. When you're chasing dopamine, it's up and down. It's a roller coaster.
It's drugs.
Yeah. But that's all it is. It's neurocircuitry at the end of the day, right? We have to find a better way to be sustainable and finding that happiness, that groundedness. That's actually, you get, the endorphins, you get the oxytocin.
Let's list 5 things to round it up. Mm-hmm. How can we balance our dopamine? How can we avoid this wave and this roller coaster of emotions? To me, balanced diet. Mm-hmm. Making sure that you don't have blood sugar crashes, that you're having enough protein. Absolutely. That I don't like intermittent fasting, but you got to start your day with food and don't starve yourself. Make sure you're getting enough calories. Mm-hmm. That's mine. I'll start with diet.
Sleep.
I like it. Sleep. Good hour. Like going to bed at a reasonable hour. Don't tell me you get 9 hours, but you went to bed at 2 a.m. That doesn't work.
No.
Before midnight. 11 o'clock? Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
11 to 7? That's 8 hours.
Yeah.
Don't overschedule yourself. I know that seems very silly, but that's
it's amazing.
It's a big one. Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of say you're going to do one thing today. Yeah. One thing. Write it down. Don't give me a list of I got this, and the dry cleaners, this. And if you get to it, great. But 1 or 2 things, you accomplish. You won today.
I usually say one main thing, and then 2 if I get this done, if I'm able to, 2 of those.
Yeah.
That's it. 3 things in your day.
Yeah.
Aside from your actual job.
Yeah. Besides, you could brush your teeth. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't count.
Yeah.
What's the number 4? Maybe positive self-talk, intention, gratitude, something that's hey, you know what? Prayer, your thing that is life's good. Life's good. Overall, I can't complain. Is there things I want? Is there things I need? Sure, maybe.
Yeah.
But you'd be what do you have?
That's where it's appreciating the smaller things, right? It's the little things, not worrying about this big house that you want or the car that you want because you want to, one up your neighbor, whatever. But it's the little things, right? I had breakfast this morning with my family. We don't always get to do that. Things like that. Appreciate those moments.
I think that ties into number 5. I was going to say, be social. Have a circle.
Exactly.
People that are friends that you love.
Yeah.
That make you feel better. That don't make you feel
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're making you feel worse, then we have to go back to that boundaries conversation there, right?
Start booking with Sarah.
Yeah.
Getting some shots from Veronica. All right. This was really, really good. I think it's a good time to end. We will do this again.
I'm ready.
Veronica, we'll have another guest for you next. All right. See ya.
Bye.